Imitate, Assimilate, Innovate. This trio of words, cherished by musicians and educators worldwide, encapsulates the guitarist's journey from student to artist. Our guitar heroes inspire and drive us to imitate their playing as accurately as possible. Assimilating their teachings, we construct a foundation of skills, techniques, and vocabulary. This groundwork rewards us with creative freedom to innovate, nurturing our unique sound and artistry. Join us this month as we celebrate guitar heroes and legends that have inspired and influenced many of our own TrueFire artists and educators. You just might discover a few new guitar heroes and legends to add to your own list. Let's dig in. Albert King, the influential blues guitarist, was known for his distinctive bending style and mastery of the Gibson Flying V guitar. His raw and expressive playing, coupled with his powerful voice, created a captivating and soulful blues experience. King's influence on the blues genre and his innovative guitar techniques remains unmatched. Today's free lesson on Albert King is from Greg Koch's Guitar Heroes course. Let's dig in.
Albert King, ladies and gentlemen. I chose Albert King, my all-time favorite electric blues man, although it's difficult because I do love B.B. King, do love Albert Collins, Otis Rush. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan because he did such a great job of playing when he did slow blues. He would do the Albert King thing and nailed it. Nailed it so good. But Albert King was someone that I first heard when I first started playing. Of course, really into Hendrix, really into Clapton, yada, yada, yada. And you'd start reading about these dudes early on, and they would always mention the same victims, right? They would mention, B.B. King, Albert King, Freddie King, Otis Rush, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Elmore James, the list goes on. And you're like, well, I want to hear those guys, because if they're influencing these guys, I really want to hear it. And then it was hard to kind of access those records back then. I remember the first record I bought of Albert King was one that was on the Tomato label. After he was on Stax, he was on this other label called Tomato, but he played with a lot of delay on his guitar. I didn't like that. I for some reason back then especially, I didn't want to hear a bunch of swirly swirls. I wanted to just hear the tone of the guitar. But I used to listen to a radio station. It was the Milwaukee Public Radio, and at night, at like 10:30 at night, they would play, this Manny Malden Jr. used to play blues records. And then I think it was once a week they would have this thing called, it was a syndicated program called Portraits in Blue. And they would take a blues artist and they would give a little biography about him and then play the songs that were the most noteworthy that they had done and so on and so forth. And I had this little AM, FM radio with a little tape thing on it, and I would record those. And so I had these cassettes that I would scour for licks. And when I would hear Albert King, I remember waking up, going to high school, junior in high school, and my first thing I'm listening to in that morning is Albert King and just think, how is he getting that sound? And what I'm talking about is just the way we that kind of thing. Now that tone that I found out later on, obviously he was playing upside down. He played a Flying V upside down, so the high strings were on the top, so he was bending down. And he was tuned low. I think it was a C sharp minor tuning that he tuned to. So he was able to bend those strings, but a lot of times he's just bending that high E string to get most of that stuff. It variously, and just bending that one string in that one position. He'd move around a little bit. It's very weird to see video footage of Albert playing, because he is backwards and he's in this weird tuning, so nothing makes sense. And that tone, when he's in the middle position of that Flying V, it's wired out of phase. And I made sure that I got out of phase sound on this latest iteration of my signature reverence. So I get. It's a very interesting. It gets that tone. And the kind of amps that Albert was playing back in the day, it was not like, he played a super reverb or he played an old Marshall. It's like he used an acoustic solid state amp. And after a while, he started to use a phaser quite a bit. When I was talking about the Tomato stuff, not only did he use a lot of delay, but he used a lot of phaser. But early on all the stuff on Stax, Stax record label that is, he did not use all that stuff. It was just a pure guitar tone. So I think the first records that I got that I really scoured over quite a bit, other than this tape that I had that was kind of a de facto greatest hits that was put together by the disc jockey doing the Portraits in Blue thing, were 2 records he had out on Stax. One was called, he had many records, but the 2 that I got a hold of, my buddy Bill across the street, that we were both guitar geeks trying to figure all this stuff out. We got a record called I'll Play the Blues for You, and another one called I Want to Get Funky. And scoured those records, listening to that sound, and it seemed like the Albert thing seemed unobtainium to me. You know what I mean? It was, how do you get that sound? And we tried, like, you know, trying to get those bends, like, right? Trying to get it. And then one day I'm a junior in high school and this David Bowie record comes on. It's Let's Dance. And all of a sudden this guitar solo comes in and it's Albert King. I'm like, who's playing those Albert King licks? Because someone had taken the time to really go, yeah, you can do it in standard tuning and just figure out how, and Stevie Ray Vaughan nailed it to the wall. So then I took more interest in really kind of trying to nail the Albert King thing, because I just love the sound. I mean, Albert King does not have a huge arsenal of licks, right? You know what he's going to do every time, but you never get tired of hearing it, and he always says something new every time he plays it. So there's different positions. I mean, obviously, because I'm not in that tuning, my guitar is not upside down, I have to do different things to try to affect that sound. Like the second position of the minor pentatonic is kind of where you can go like. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll choke up on the pick to get these kind of pinch harmonic, but I pick up, right? And the reason why I do that is because Albert King would have been upside down. So with his thumb going down on those strings, it's the same thing as me picking up with my guitar strung the correct way, if that makes sense. So when I'm doing like a, you can really kind of get that sound. Anyways, so, you know, for years, you know, I'd play Strats, I'd play Tellys, and so on and so forth to try to get that. But to really get that Albert thing nailed, an out of phase thing really helps. And so with my new P90s that I did with Fishman, we worked out a way to get that really cool sound. The Peter Green wiring, for those who don't know, and I'm not a big electronics guy, so I'm just going to speak in layman's terms. On the Peter Green guitar, or setup with the way one of his pickups was reversed, when he goes in the middle position, it's fully out of phase. But if you grab either volume control and go back just a little bit, the color of the tone of the out of phase sound changes. It gets a little darker and a little bit more usable. Fully out of phase is something that is a very polarizing sound. It can be very piercing and wimpy in comparison to your other pickup sounds. So it's something, as I said, it's polarized. A lot of people don't like it. But if you can get that sound where it's just like a volume rolled back a little bit, it gets this fatter tone. And that's what I have wired in on this one. So it's not, you know, it's out of phase, but the volume of the bridge pickups roll back just a little bit, so I get this. So it's a little fatter sounding. Anyway, so always good stuff that you can find on the internet with Albert. You know, of course, the record Born Under a Bad Sign has a lot of what would be construed as the hits. There was another one, Big Boss Blues. There was a live record he did called Blues Before Sunrise. That was a huge one for me. I listened to that a ton. And then he did do a record with Stevie Ray Vaughan where they're just kind of bouncing tunes back and forth. And that's actually very, very cool, because you hear Stevie Ray doing Albert King, and then you hear Albert King doing Albert King. It's fantastic. So anyways, that's some insight into one of my huge inspirations, Albert King.